Start step-by-step talking. Arthur, a keen chap from Nottingham, harbored a secret ambition to speak English with unshakable confidence. He'd often stumble over words, feeling a blush creep up his neck during any attempt at conversation. It wasn't merely about understanding, but about truly expressing himself, embracing the nuances of this fascinating global language with ease and grace. He knew a structured approach was key to success. The sheer vastness of learning English often felt overwhelming, a monumental task stretching endlessly before him. Where does one even begin when faced with such an enormous linguistic mountain? Arthur understood that true mastery wasn't about quick fixes or overnight miracles. It required a deliberate, step-by-step methodology, carefully designed to build foundational skills before advancing to more complex areas. He decided to approach it like a grand expedition, meticulously planning each segment of his journey. This meant breaking down the intimidating whole into manageable, bite-sized pieces. His initial focus would be on establishing a robust foundation, something often overlooked in the haste to speak. Small, consistent efforts, he reasoned, would eventually lead to colossal improvements in his command of the language. The very first, and arguably most pivotal, step Arthur identified was immersing himself in reading. It sounds simple, doesn't it? Yet, the profound impact of consistently engaging with written English cannot be overstated. From classic literature to contemporary articles, every word absorbed was a brick in his growing linguistic fortress, strengthening his grasp on structure and vocabulary immeasurably. Reading, Arthur quickly discovered, wasn't just about decoding words on a page, it was a powerful gateway into the very soul of the language. Each story, every news report, carried subtle cultural clues and idiomatic expressions. It allowed him to understand not just what was said, but how it was said, absorbing the inherent rhythm and cadence of British English naturally, without conscious effort. His reading material varied wildly, from gripping detective novels by Agatha Christie to insightful articles in the Guardian newspaper. He even delved into online blogs, finding content related to his hobbies. This diverse exposure ensured he encountered a wide array of vocabulary and sentence structures, preventing boredom and keeping his mind constantly engaged with fresh, authentic English prose. This consistent reading habit became a relentless vocabulary builder. Words he encountered repeatedly started to feel familiar, then naturally embedded themselves in his memory. Soon, he wasn't just recognizing words, he was understanding their precise usage, their connotations, and their typical collocations. This mental dictionary expanded daily, making his comprehension sharper and more nuanced. Moreover, reading provided an unparalleled, subconscious masterclass in English grammar. Without explicitly studying rules, Arthur began to internalize correct sentence patterns, verb tenses, and prepositional usage. He started to feel when something sounded right or wrong, simply because he had absorbed so much well-formed English through his eyes, making grammatical intuition second nature. The unique rhythm and flow of British English, so distinctive and often charming, also became clearer through reading. He noticed how sentences were constructed, the way ideas connected seamlessly, and the subtle shifts in tone expressed through punctuation. It was like learning a musical score visually, preparing him for the eventual performance of spoken English, full of natural cadences. Fluency, Arthur understood, wasn't some mystical gift bestowed upon a lucky few. It was a skill meticulously cultivated through diligent practice. It meant being able to express thoughts smoothly and effortlessly, without awkward pauses or constant searching for words. This seamless flow, he realized, was directly linked to the breadth and depth of his linguistic foundation, built precisely by reading. Indeed, reading provided the crucial mental architecture upon which fluent expression could be built. A rich internal library of vocabulary and grammatical constructs meant fewer moments of hesitation. When he needed a word, it was more likely to be readily available in his mind, having been encountered and reinforced numerous times through his dedicated reading practice over many months. Imagine the delightful scenario, engaging in conversations where words just seemed to tumble out effortlessly, ideas forming articulately without struggle. This ease, this natural rhythm, is the hallmark of true fluency. Arthur dreamt of such moments, knowing that every page turned, every paragraph understood, brought him closer to this desirable state of linguistic freedom and confidence. This wonderful linguistic agility stemmed directly from a well-stocked mental lexicon, diligently built brick by brick. Each new word acquired through reading was a tool, ready for deployment in spontaneous conversation. The more tools he possessed, the more versatile and precise his communication became, allowing him to navigate complex discussions with admirable clarity and poise. Arthur viewed his consistent reading routine as a daily workout for his linguistic muscles. Just like an athlete trains rigorously for peak performance, he exercised his brain by consuming varied English texts. This regular mental exertion kept his vocabulary sharp, his comprehension keen, and his ability to process information in English consistently improving, ready for any challenge. Beyond mere words, reading offered unparalleled exposure to diverse sentence structures, intricate narrative patterns, and idiomatic expressions that sprinkle British English conversations. He learned not just individual phrases, but how they were woven into the fabric of everyday communication, understanding their appropriate contexts and nuances, enriching his expressive capability profoundly. Once his reading foundation felt solid, Arthur cautiously ventured into the realm of speaking with real people. This was a significant leap, moving from passive absorption to active production. He knew that fluency wasn't just about internal knowledge, it required the courage to open his mouth and interact, however imperfectly at first, with actual English speakers. The initial attempts were, admittedly, a bit wobbly. A knot of anxiety would often tighten in his stomach, and words sometimes seemed to get stuck before reaching his tongue. He'd feel that familiar flush creeping up his neck when he stumbled or mispronounced something. But he reminded himself that every single native speaker had once been a hesitant learner, too. He kept reminding himself that perfection was an unrealistic and unhelpful goal at this stage. Everyone makes mistakes, even native speakers sometimes fluff their lines. The crucial part was to keep trying, to learn from each stumble, and to not let embarrassment deter him. Each faulty sentence was a stepping stone, not a failure, propelling him forward on his journey. Arthur sought out a language exchange partner online, a lovely lady from Bristol named Chloe, who was learning French. Their regular video calls became invaluable. She was patient and encouraging, correcting him gently when needed but always praising his efforts. Having a dedicated, understanding partner made all the difference in building his conversational confidence steadily. Beyond one-on-one exchanges, Arthur explored various online communities and forums dedicated to language learning. These platforms provided endless opportunities to engage in written and spoken practice with people from diverse backgrounds. He found that even short, informal chats contributed immensely to his ability to formulate thoughts quickly and respond spontaneously in English. He adopted a powerful mantra: "Don't be afraid to make errors, they are invaluable learning points." This shift in perspective liberated him. Instead of fearing mistakes, he started viewing them as feedback, guiding him towards more accurate and natural English. Each correction, no matter how small, was a sign of progress, not a sign of failure. Initially, his focus wasn't on achieving perfect grammar in every sentence, but rather on communicating his message clearly and effectively. He prioritized getting his point across, even if it meant sacrificing a little grammatical precision. Fluency, he realized, was about flow and comprehensibility, with grammatical accuracy improving naturally over time with consistent practice and feedback. Arthur began to engage in small talk more readily, discussing everyday topics with increasing ease. Whether it was the weather, recent news, or his weekend plans, he found he could contribute to conversations without excessive mental gymnastics. This practical application of his growing vocabulary and grammar boosted his confidence exponentially, making speaking less daunting. This consistent, active speaking practice provided an enormous boost to his overall fluency. It transformed the theoretical knowledge he gained from reading and studying into practical, usable skills. The more he spoke, the quicker his brain retrieved words, formulated sentences, and adapted to the rhythm of live conversation, making him feel genuinely more articulate. Speaking out loud, even briefly, solidified the connections between words, meanings, and pronunciation in his mind. It helped him to move beyond merely recognizing vocabulary to actively deploying it in real time. This iterative process of input, reading/listening, and output, speaking/writing, was absolutely fundamental to making his English genuinely functional and dynamic. Moving swiftly on, Arthur understood that speaking prowess was intrinsically linked to superior listening skills. You can't effectively respond if you haven't truly absorbed what's being said. He dedicated significant time to honing his auditory comprehension, knowing it was the bedrock of meaningful, reciprocal communication in any language, especially nuanced British English. He learned that active listening was far more than simply hearing sounds. It involved paying keen attention to intonation, understanding subtle conversational cues, and discerning meaning even when accents differed. It was about comprehending the underlying message, not just individual words, which allowed him to follow conversations smoothly and contribute relevantly. To improve his listening, Arthur immersed himself in British media. Podcasts like Desert Island Discs and The Archers became his daily companions. He binged on classic British TV shows such as Fawlty Towers and modern dramas, watching with subtitles initially, then gradually without. This authentic exposure was incredibly effective for training his ear. He specifically focused on identifying different accents within the UK, from the crispness of received pronunciation to the distinctive sounds of regional dialects. He paid attention to intonation patterns, how questions rose in pitch, and how emphasis was placed on certain words, all crucial elements for truly understanding spoken British English and its rich variations. Arthur started with simpler, clearer content, like children's audiobooks or beginner-level podcasts designed for language learners. As his comprehension improved, he gradually increased the complexity, moving to fast-paced news broadcasts or documentaries. This incremental approach prevented frustration and built his confidence steadily, ensuring continuous progress. When encountering challenging sections, particularly in rapid-fire dialogue, Arthur wouldn't shy away. He would pause, rewind, and re-listen repeatedly until the meaning clicked. This tenacious approach to difficult audio was vital for truly dissecting complex sentences and understanding idiomatic expressions that might otherwise slip past him unnoticed during first listen. He made it a habit to actively identify new vocabulary and phrases within spoken contexts. Rather than just understanding the gist, he would note down unfamiliar words as he heard them, then look them up later. This proactive approach ensured that his listening practice was not just passive exposure but an active process of vocabulary acquisition. Arthur firmly believed that superior listening comprehension was paramount for effective communication. If you couldn't understand what was being said to you, how could you possibly formulate an appropriate response? It was the essential input mechanism, feeding his brain the necessary data to produce meaningful and relevant spoken output in real-time interactions. Indeed, excellent listening skills allowed him to respond appropriately, contribute thoughtfully, and keep a conversation flowing naturally without awkward silences. He could pick up on nuances, jokes, and implied meanings, which made his interactions far more engaging and authentic. It was the key to moving beyond basic exchanges to genuine connection with others. Now for a slightly quirky, yet incredibly potent, strategy Arthur employed, talking to himself at home. This might sound a bit mad, perhaps, but it was a secret weapon for honing his English-speaking skills without any pressure. His flat became his personal English language laboratory, a safe space for uninhibited practice and experimentation. He realized that this seemingly odd habit was, in fact, remarkably effective for self-practice and building confidence. There was no one to judge, no need to feel embarrassed by mistakes. It was an unfiltered opportunity to articulate thoughts in English, making it a perfect environment for trial and error, ensuring rapid personal linguistic growth. Arthur would narrate his daily activities aloud, describing his breakfast, recounting his morning walk, or explaining how he planned his day. He'd describe objects around his house, practicing vocabulary and sentence structures in a practical context. This constant internal monologue externalized into spoken English, building fluency naturally. He'd even practice delivering short speeches on topics he cared about, perhaps imagining he was presenting to an audience. This forced him to organize his thoughts coherently in English, use appropriate linking words, and maintain a steady flow. It was excellent preparation for more formal speaking situations, honing his public speaking abilities privately. Sometimes, he'd pretend he was having a lively conversation with an imaginary friend, playing both parts. This allowed him to practice asking questions, formulating responses, and debating points, essentially simulating a real dialogue. It was a brilliant way to anticipate conversational turns and build spontaneity in his spoken English, making him more agile. This consistent self-talk built crucial muscle memory for his mouth, tongue, and vocal cords. Speaking English involves physical coordination, and regular practice, even alone, trained these muscles to produce unfamiliar sounds and intonations effortlessly. The words began to feel more natural on his tongue, reducing effort during actual conversations. It provided a safe haven to experiment with new words and phrases he'd encountered in his reading or listening. He could try them out, see how they felt, and integrate them into his active vocabulary without the pressure of an audience. This private experimentation greatly accelerated his absorption and confident use of fresh expressions. Crucially, he could correct himself instantly during these solo sessions. If a phrase didn't sound quite right, or if he realized he'd used the wrong tense, he could immediately rephrase it. This immediate feedback loop was incredibly powerful, reinforcing correct patterns and preventing the perpetuation of common errors in his spoken English. This self-dialogue solidified grammar and pronunciation patterns in a highly relaxed, stress-free environment. Repetition through speaking, even to himself, deeply embedded the correct structures and sounds. It turned theoretical knowledge into instinctive application, making his spoken English more accurate and naturally fluent over time, without conscious effort. Ultimately, this private practice became a powerful confidence booster for real-life interactions. Having rehearsed numerous scenarios and articulated countless thoughts in English alone, Arthur felt far more prepared and less anxious when speaking with others. It transformed him from a hesitant learner into a confident communicator, ready for any conversation. Finally, Arthur immersed himself in the sheer joy of learning English through captivating stories. He understood that while grammar books and vocabulary lists were necessary, it was narratives that truly brought the language to life, making the learning process not just effective, but genuinely delightful and deeply memorable for him. Stories, whether written or spoken, made the entire learning experience profoundly engaging. They provided rich context for new vocabulary, embedding words in meaningful scenarios rather than isolating them. This narrative immersion made retention easier and transformed dry facts into vivid, unforgettable experiences, accelerating his understanding and recall. Through tales of adventure, romance, and mystery, he encountered words and phrases in their natural habitats. The plot provided clues to their meanings, making the learning process intuitive. He wasn't just memorizing definitions, he was experiencing language as a living, breathing entity, understanding nuances through the characters' actions and dialogues. From the timeless classics of Jane Austen to the contemporary thrillers found in local bookshops, Arthur devoured stories across genres. He sought out narratives that resonated with his interests, ensuring that his learning was always fueled by genuine curiosity and enjoyment. This personal connection made every reading session a true pleasure. Stories transported him to different worlds and eras, allowing him to absorb the language organically, almost without realizing he was studying. This immersive approach bypassed the tediousness of rote learning, making English feel less like an academic subject and more like a vibrant, living tool for understanding and experiencing human narratives deeply. Beyond vocabulary, stories introduced him to profound cultural nuances, British humor, and idiomatic expressions that are impossible to grasp from a dictionary alone. He learned how phrases were used in authentic contexts, understanding their emotional weight and social implications, which enriched his comprehension of British English profoundly. Arthur embraced this comprehensive journey, moving step by systematic step, with unwavering dedication and a cheerful disposition. He understood that true mastery required patience and consistent effort across all linguistic domains, not just focusing on one aspect in isolation. His holistic approach yielded truly remarkable and sustainable results. His disciplined reading habits, cultivating a vast internal library of words and grammatical structures, transformed his comprehension. He could now easily navigate complex texts and understand intricate arguments. This solid foundation underpinned every other aspect of his English learning, making fluency achievable and sustainable through continuous input. Daily conversations, both with patient native speakers and, crucially, with himself, polished his speaking ability beyond recognition. He moved from hesitant pauses to flowing dialogue, articulating his thoughts with clarity and confidence. The fear of speaking vanished, replaced by a genuine enjoyment of linguistic interaction. His listening skills, honed through endless hours of British podcasts and television, sharpened significantly. He could now effortlessly distinguish accents, pick up on subtle intonations, and understand fast-paced dialogue, even in noisy environments. The nuances of spoken British English, once a mystery, became wonderfully clear. The world of English truly opened up for Arthur, rich with compelling stories, meaningful connections, and endless opportunities. His journey proved that with a methodical approach, consistent practice, and a genuine love for the language, anyone can achieve remarkable fluency and confidence in English, embracing its beauty fully.